Welcome to today's video. What I've done is I started up the DC for hometest.org. Started up the Win22 hometest.org. So this is our domain controller, where you can see the DC hometest.org. And the Win22 is a server of Windows Server 22. We're going to build IIS on it. We're going to show you how to install SQL database on it, and we'll show you as well how you can use WAMP. We'll talk about more about it once we get inside the server. Let me log in and let's get ready to take it. Okay, I just logged into the Windows Server 2022, and you can see there's some Windows updates. We'll deal with that a little bit later, but first of all, we're going to head over and we're going to install IIS. Now, if you're new, you don't know what IIS is, stands for Internet Information Services. So if you want to build a website that runs on Microsoft Internet Information Services, you're going to need to install this role, and it's all under Add Role and Features. So we're going to head over here to Add Roles and Features. We're going to click Next. We're going to select Next. We know this is our local machine name that we set up to join our domain. And then we're going to look in this list for IIS. You see here it's a web server, IIS. So we're going to turn this server into a web server. So put a tick in it, you'll automatically popped up with add features. You just add the features in there. Click Next. And click Next. Click Next. Next. And it's giving you a bit of a summary here of what it's going to install. You can see your IIS management console. We'll have a quick look at the management console as well. Let's click install. Might take a couple of minutes and I'll come back once. Okay, IIS just completed. You can see it's finished now installing, and we have the close button. Hit close, and there you'll see the IIS services. You can see underneath here role and services. We can see the services for IIS is up here. Now to see if IIS management console is in here, you can go here to where it say type here to search. You can just do IIS. It will bring up the Internet Information Service Manager. Now, make it a little bigger. So if we just expand our home server, we can see this is application pool. So you might have some web services running, which will activate the specific pool to let the website run, which will appear in your application pools. And your actual website, you'll start building down underneath this. So you can see there's a default website already set up there, so which you can go and play around with. You can set it up yourself. You can also import other websites from places like GitHub, which can give you a sample, a website which you can use for your home lab. And we're going to have a quick look. On our web server, I just opened the web browser. And just to show you, this is a website called www.iis.net. This is from Microsoft. This is going to tell you all the latest news and updates and how to start and get started with IIS. If you do want to get a sample website, you can always head over here to Microsoft, well, not Microsoft, on GitHub, and you can go to Azure Workshops, and it's a sample simple IIS website, which you can get from GitHub and put into your IIS. What you also can do is you can head over here. I will put all these links below this video as well. You can head over to makeuseof.com, and they've got a nice article on here as well for you how to use IIS to host a website locally on Windows. Now this is great to have a little website on your home lab, because you can use this website as well to tag the website, to tag IIS services in your lab for your hacking lab that we're busy building out here. And I'll add all these links underneath. I'm not going to take too much of your time today to show you exactly how to install it. The next thing what we'll do is we head over and we're going to install Microsoft SQL for SQL databases, and I'll show you how that works in a second as well. It's just this overview video. Remember, guys, you need to investigate things yourself. Install is the only way you're going to learn, is to do it practical yourself. And when you get stuck, to go onto Google. And these days, if you really get stuck, go to u.com or get yourself a ChatGPT account. There's loads of AI tools which can help you find the answers. But don't let AI do the work, because you're not going to learn. So do the work manually. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to come back and ask me a question as well. Right, I'm going to stop the video here, and I'm going to come back in a second. We're going to chat about Microsoft. Bringing you back to the diagram as part of the first video in the series I've made. And this is the diagram that we sort of busy creating for our hacking lab. So at the moment, we already built our domain controllers built, and we built a Windows 22 server, which we just installed IIS. Now I'm going to use the same server for this demonstration, but I would recommend when you build your home lab, build at least 3 servers out for you. A Windows 19, a Windows 2022, Windows 2016, maybe another 22 server out. So, or 2000, another now 2019 server. So you have different flavors of Microsoft on there as well. Even though they all look pretty much the same and do the same function, there might be a few little tweaks and stuff you can do as part of your hacking lab yourself. So on your hacking lab, make sure you install a server for SQL, a server for IIS, and have a server for WAMP. Now let's head back over to this server here. Let's go view and make it full size. And I've downloaded here as you can see Microsoft SQL Management Studio. So we can install this. I'm going to show you quickly how to do this. It's basically next. Well, it's not basically next. Like, you can do so many different things with Microsoft SQL, but this is just a home lab, so we're just going to keep it simple for ourselves during our installation. Remember, as I said before, with IT, go back and add an extra building block on the process so you can learn how to use and become a little bit more complicated things on SQL, so you can learn those things, because when you go into your hacking lab and in cybersecurity, you can become proficient at your job as a penetration tester or cybersecurity analysis. So let's hit install. We say yes, because I haven't turned off some of the features on this machine. And this might take some time just loading the packages for us. So I'm going to stop here and there to make the video a bit short. SQL Management Studio is just installed, it's just completed. We can click close to that. And you can see if you go in here, type in SQL, you'll see that SQL Management Studio is on the machine. We'll just start it up. Remember, there's no databases. We haven't created any database anyway. And if you go on to your server, you can only see you have the SQL Server tools down here, and you have the Data Studio for the Microsoft Azure to connect it to Azure as well. Okay, SQL Management Studio is open and it's asking us to connect to a SQL database. So we haven't got a server set up yet for SQL Server. You can see this is all blank, local servers, there's nothing there. So we haven't set it up yet, but we only installed the Management Studio of where we're going to manage it from. The next thing what I've done is I've also downloaded from the Evaluation Center. I've downloaded and installed, well, not installed, downloaded the SQL Server 2022. So all you have to do is download from Microsoft SQL Evaluation Center, fill in a form, and download the Evaluation Center. So we're just going to install a basic version of SQL Database Server and all the features with it. We're going to accept that. We can go in. I just want to close SQL Management Studio. We can say install, which is basically next install. It's not because we're just doing a basic installation because we're using this home lab. You can go and create a cluster. With other words, you can actually create two SQL servers in your home lab at home, and then you can build a cluster between the two SQL databases. So you can make one database an active database and the other one a passive database. So if the active database fail, it automatically moves over, and the passive one becomes the active database. So that gives you a chance, say, for instance, your active SQL server, this actual server died or something goes wrong on that virtual machine. So that's a process then kicks over, move it over to your passive one, and now your passive server is live. Now you can go work and fix your previously or your number one SQL server. So it's sort of just, if you understand what I mean about it, but this is basically you can build multiple clusters, you can add 3 clusters, you can add a witness into it. That's mainly if you want to get into a lot more detail in building out SQL environments. For this purpose, we're just building a hacking lab at home where we want to hack a SQL server. We want to actually do SQL injections and add a database into one of these from a web front end. So we want to actually just use something nice and easy to quick to set up for our home lab so we can start studying and start using our lab for our hacking. Just to put in perspective for you what I mean by active and passive. So you can build in your home lab 2 SQL servers if you want. It's completely up to you. For me, for my lab, I'm just going to have 1 SQL server. But if you want to learn a bit more about SQL and how it works, you can actually build 2 SQL servers. You can call one the active one and one the passive one. And this is your database server, which you're going to mainly update with all your web changes or your application changes. And then you can make sure that this database, but the active one, syncs to your SQL passive one. So you have a backup copy over here. So if this server here suddenly die, this one goes off, your passive one becomes your active one. And that gives you then time to come and fix your active server. And once the server comes back up, you can then sync your SQL databases back to your active one to bring both servers back into the same state or same level. And then you can start this one up and then switch in SQL Management Studio. You can make this again your active server. This is just a basic explanation for you on how a cluster works. You can have multiple servers. You can have 4 servers into your cluster for your SQL. You can add a witness in which monitors and keep an eye as well on your cluster. But there's many different other ways. It's very much if you have an on-premise one. I'm not sure how it works in Azure. I'm not done SQL services in Microsoft Azure. I presume it's very similar. If you have experience with it, please leave your comment below. Okay, SQL Server just installed. So you can see this is our instance name. It's going to be the database name. So you can go to the connection string. You can see the SQL administrating folder is going to be in your Microsoft program files. You can see your language, your evaluation installation folder, and you can see also the version. It's going to ask you to install SSMS, which is SQL Service Management Studio, and other tools. I just installed 19, so you can click install again, and at least you can get the latest version. It will take you to the website from where you can download it. So in this case, I'm just going to click close because I've got the SQL Management Server installed, and I'm going to say, right, let's start up our SQL Management Studio. Now that we've got SQL installed, go to SQL Management Studio, open this. Might take a second to load. Just give it a patience. You will be presented with your SQL Server login. You can see you can have analysis services, reporting services, integration in your Azure integrated runtime as well. We're just going to do a database engine because we want to add a database. Now, if you do click on connect, you do get an error message. What you can try and do is you can go to options and you can say trust server certificate. And you can, once it's done, you can go back to log in and click connect. This should connect you to your SQL Server. Now, you'll see on your SQL Server, services is running. However, if I expand databases, there's no databases in there at all because we haven't created a database. We haven't built a website that actually hosts a database. Once again, you can go and look for some stuff on GitHub if you want to look for stuff for SQL databases. So feel free to go and get some information from there. You can do your SQL queries and all of that once you have a database. If you want to set up a blank database with nothing in, just right click on databases, select new database. Give it a name as home test. This is our domain, so I'm just going to call it home test as well. You can go to options. Now, because we only have a VM and it don't have a lot of space for the recovery model, I'm not going to have it at full. I'm just going to have it at simple. So it actually locks less information for me on my server. There's file groups. I'm not going to attach any file groups, but if you have any file groups you want to attach, you can run scripts as well if you have SQL scripts to do your file groups. Once again, with your options as well, if you want to change any options in your database and you want to learn a bit more about it, you can go and get yourself a little script created, a SQL script that you can just open the script from here and run it in the query window. So I'm just setting up a very simple basic database. I'm going to click OK. And you can see it's now created and there's a home test database. So if I expand a database, you'll see the database is a complete different icon. So like a little cylinder with a gray or black color on there. If I expand it, you can see the diagram. You can see tables. There's nothing in diagrams. Tables, if I expand tables, it shouldn't be a lot. So you can go on tables, you can add tables, you can run reports on the tables. You can right click on your SQL database. You have different tasks you can do on this database. You can take the database offline, you can detach it, you can export it, you can put it in a mirror state to your passive code as well. You have different policies you can set up. There's loads of different things you can do with your database. You can also drop the database. With other words, you take the database completely down as goodbye database, basically. So you can also go to security. You can create yourself a SQL user with this DBO rights, which is the full DBO. If you have a full database administrative rights, that's your DBO rights as well that you'll have in there. You'll have your schema information there, your system account, and your guest. You can add different roles onto your database as well. You can really do a lot of different things. And you can go to manage on your database to see what's actually happening on the database as well. So teach you a little bit more about what's happening on the database. Underneath manage, you can go on to data collection. You can look at any events that's happening. Maintenance plans you want to do. SQL logs, you maybe get an error in your SQL database. You're going to come and have a look what is actually in the logs. Just double click it and you actually see all the SQL logs. Right guys, I'm not going to take too much of your time because I'm going to quickly add on and show you WAMP and have a quick short discussion for this video. I know this video might be a little bit longer than normal, but it's just showing you what you can do for your lab. Build a server out for each of these services so you can use each server separately in your hacking. Now you may ask, what is WAMP server? What does a WAMP stand for? In Linux and open source world, we have something called LAMP. And LAMP is for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So if you want to build a web server, you want to run, say for instance, a WordPress site on your Windows server, you can come and download and install WAMP server for yourself. And the WAMP server will give you the ability to dynamically have a web application that runs on Microsoft, which is Windows, which is the W standing for, Apache 2, and with the PHP script language and MySQL databases. So this gives you the same infrastructure that you will have on a Linux LAMP, but this is just for a Windows server, the WAMP. So you can go over here, hit download. It will take you over. Do have a 64-bit server, so you can hit download, fill in the form, and go from there. Now I've already got it installed. I'm going to bring it up. Okay, I've got the web server here. We're going to just double click on the icon or the installer, and we'll just go from there. Pop-up pops up, just say yes, and select our language, in my case English. Accept the license, next. It gives you all the license and information agreement that you can see from here. Next. I'm going to install it on the C drive. You can have a different location if you want, but for Windows, I'm just going to leave it on the root of C. It's going to be a WAMP server 64-bit. We're going to just hit install and let it work by itself, and we'll come back once it's finished installing. I'm going to install the WAMP server, double click on it. Just give it a second to load. It's a very straightforward installation. Just click yes to that for your security rights. Say okay, accept the license agreement. Next. Tells you a little bit about all of the installation, where everything's going to be. Click next. Going to install it on our root area on the C drive. Now you can see these components. You can actually install the data MariaDB at a lower version if you want. At the moment, I'm going to select the highest version. In my SQL, I'm going to take the highest version it can. Leave everything else as default. Click next. Next. Gives us a summary. Install, and it will take about a minute to install. Okay, the installation is moved on. Now it's asking us to set up any other default web browsers that we want to use on the system. At the moment, we have Edge already installed, so I'm just going to say no, I don't have any other web browser. Notepad, do you want to install that for your WAMP server to use it? I've already got Notepad installed on the server. I'm just going to click no. And just wait for it to finish. It's nearly there. All installation takes roughly about 3-4 minutes depending on the processing power of your virtual machine. There we go. So now it's saying please read the information. It's quite important. This basically tells you how to start the services and how to access your MariaDB or your MySQL DB. If it depends on which one you use for your website, you can click next, hit finish. So what I will do for you guys as well underneath this video, I'm going to add this link here, and this is from WP Astra, a website. Big shout out to them. They've got a nice article here of how to install a WordPress site on your Windows computer using WAMP. And this is what you're going to use WAMP for, to run a WordPress site on your Windows machine. We will do another video later on how you can use an Ubuntu server or another Linux distro like CentOS or server to run a WordPress site from as well. But at the moment, I'm going to stick to the Windows one because most corporate environments have mainly Windows servers, but we're going to try and hack these servers with our hacking tools from Kali Linux or Parrot OS, and use the various tools to try and take control of these machines, elevate our privileges, and control these machines without anybody knowing and then cleaning up after ourselves. So I hope this video finds you well. If you like it, please like and subscribe.